All right.
All right, good afternoon. Um, we're going to call to order the special meeting of the City Council on October 8th. If you can stand and join me for the pledge. I don't have the agenda in front of me, Tom, so I'm gonna try to do this from memory. But the first thing we do, Tina, is the public forum. So this is the opportunity for any members of the public to address the council on an item not on the agenda. All we have on the agenda is the Peace Officers Association agreement. So if you wanted to say anything to us, not about that, this would be the time you do it. Okay. Then this is on the administrative agenda, right, Tom?
Yeah, so it's up here. So,
Okay.
um,
Oh.
no city manager's report, no presentations, no minutes, no consent agenda. So we're really just one administrative item today. Should we just go into it?
Yep.
Yes. Okay, so the reason we're having a special meeting today is to talk about the Police Officer Association union agreement. The city gave them a last, best, and final offer last week, and they met and they accepted it Friday evening, which is we didn't get it agendized for last night's meeting, so we're having this meeting today. And Dave Ritchie, who works with Derek at Cole Huber, is on Zoom. If you guys have any questions. And so again, we've been negotiating for about 7 months. We got down to the final items, and I can just kind of summarize what's in the offer. So this would be a 1-year agreement. It would be effective upon ratification, which would be today's meeting. There's a salary increase of 6.25%. There would be a creation of a retiree health savings account, which would be funded by the police officers. The city would pay about $150 a year for the administration costs. So this is basically like a 401k. It's funded by the employee. It would be a benefit that we would add to our benefit pool. We're formalizing the take-home car policy, which they've had for a while now. It was never part of any union MOU. And a lot of the back and forth on this item was really to make it clear that the chief of the police can really decide the parameters of the program. If we need cars here in town for a parade or an event, then an officer cannot take it home. Basically he can tweak the program as needed. We did agree if we were going to cancel the program entirely that we would meet and confer on that before we did that. We also had a lot of discussion about what kind of time would be included in overtime. We agreed to count vacation hours as it would be calculated over a 28-day work period. If they worked more than 171 hours, then it would count as overtime. So city still has the ability to manage the schedule to try to minimize overtime. But again, given that we don't have that many officers, sometimes can't avoid it. There was a lot of discussion about discipline procedure. We are updating the discipline guidelines. They're at the end of your packet there. The one kind of point of contention was binding arbitration. The city does not have binding arbitration, and we did not add it in this agreement. And then finally, the last point is a one-time retention bonus. This would be a non-perishable one-time payment. It would be paid out in December. It's $1,000 to each officer. And so those are the terms. And I don't know, Dave, if you have anything to add. And you're muted if you're there. we can come back to Dave. Do you guys have any questions? Oh, hang on a second. Julia is joining us.
Hey,
Julia?
Tom. Tom, I didn't have sound for a bit there.
Sorry, so you didn't hear anything?
Well, I was following along the presentation, but if there were questions, I didn't get the questions.
No, no questions yet.
I've got
Okay.
one though.
Sure.
On the, 3, the take-home car policy.
Yes.
Says the change is in bold, and I see, I remember what, we discussed here is in bold, but it's really a change to have that at all in the MOU, right? It wasn't a part of this document before?
The whole thing has changed. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a holdover from previous offer that we made during this
So
negotiation.
the fact that it's in it is
Yes.
new this contract, and then
Where it says
after
change
the,
in bold, that was just something that was added in the last round.
okay,
That's all
back
that
and forth,
means. Yeah.
gotcha.
So can you hear me, Tom?
Yes, we can. Hi, Julia.
Okay. All right. So greetings from Durango, and I was able to read through the latest offer. I do have a concern with that change on item number 3, in the context of what I feel the city has really worked to credit the police department with their service and with their salary increase, with the addition of the savings account. And it's not a pill that I can swallow with the change on item number 3.
Which
It's
change?
it's difficult for me that it seems that we are giving up so much, and to have that change entered in according to the last negotiation really does not sit with me as something that I could accept the entire proposal.
So, Julia, what part of 3? So 3 is not changed. It's my fault.
The change
Informative.
of the language, based on the immediate impact on public safety, status of the fleet, personnel performance and discipline, the chief of police has the discretion to suspend or amend the administration of the program.
Right.
In the event
Yeah,
the chief of police intends to terminate. So that section, which even on the preface and the background, with that in place, and not with having the process directly between either you representing the city of Sutter Creek and the council, and to have that back, it's not something that I would in the least agree to.
Okay, I just want to make sure this is something the city asked for. It basically is giving us discretion to tweak it. Legally, I think if we were to terminate it, we would have to meet and confer. But basically, it just says the parameters of the program are at the discretion of the city, which I think we want. That's to the city's advantage.
Well, it says in the event the chief of police, and I have nothing against, this is not a personal matter, but in the event that the chief of police intends to terminate the program, it would be subject to meet and confer. So the decision first really lies back with the police chief and the representatives. And I think I voiced my opposition to the vacation as time worked for computation of overtime on number 4. I've been consistent in disagreeing with that and not accepting that. And then to have this change of language really, which puts the if you want to call it power, decision-making, initial decision-making, not with the city. It's not a proposal that I can accept at this point.
Okay. So I understand your point now.
So,
Just to be clear, though,
okay.
these things did not change for the last couple of offers. We can't retract them. The only real addition was number 6, which again, you guys authorized me to make, and they have accepted. The chief of police reports to the city manager. So I think it effectively is the city, if that's your concern, that chief of the police would go off the reservation. That's not the intent here. The intent was really to say it's the city's discretion.
But that's not the way it reads.
Well, the chief of police is part of the city management.
All other operational adjustments shall remain at the discretion of the chief of police. There's not a reference to the city of Sutter Creek.
Okay.
Julia, it's me. Hi.
Yeah,
Uh,
hi, Claire.
I hear you, and I'm not, just throw something at me, Tom, because I'm not really sure how to have this conversation because we had it in closed session. So I'm not sure what
Yeah.
we could discuss, but the car item that you're referring to, we all had angst about that to various degrees. We had gone back and forth with these adjustments, and that the last 2 proposals ago, I have it in front of me, and I don't think I can read it because that was closed session. Am I right?
I mean, you can read it to yourself.
Well, I just did. Yeah. And we had proposed something without that language, and it was that they did not accept it. And then we added the language that you're seeing, and they accepted that. But the council has approved that since that time in our last closed session. I can't remember.
Well, the council has not taken, I'm going to say that the council has only done consensus. There hasn't been a vote. And my stance still is with that language in number 3 and my consistent opposition to item number 4. So it's none of my business how the other council members feel, and towards this final, the city's last and best final offer, all I can say is this proposal in its entirety, and based on my consistent opposition and concern with items number 3 in opposition to number 4, is once it comes down to a vote, I cannot accept it.
Tom, I wanted to speak to the concern about the language, and Julia, this is Susan. I don't know if this will make you feel any differently, but what you're saying is in using the head, the chief of police, that then defers back to the city manager at the advisement of the council, has sovereignty over the chief of police. So it will be a city decision.
Yeah. I mean, Jim comes to me, discusses things. The intent really here was that the day-to-day operational parameters would be managed by the chief of police and not subject to meet and confer. It was to, say that this program benefits the city and that, our officers can respond to calls quickly. But if we need to tweak it, if we need to change it, we can. And the union's, perspective was, once we did something like this, everything would require meet and confer. And we said, no, we think the operational parameters can be tweaked, and so they agreed to that basically. So the only thing
but the language, what I read is the chief of police has the discretion to suspend or amend the administration of the program in the event that the chief intends to terminate the program. So it doesn't say amend the program. This would be subject then to meet and confer. So that to me is a change in the language and understanding of what we had discussed in the past.
Well, could it read terminate or amend? Would that be a change that we'd have to go back?
Yeah, I mean, they've signed this. This is, you guys kind of
Well,
authorized me over time to have this negotiating authority. The city has made this offer. If we don't accept their acceptance of our offer, I don't know, David, if you could speak to kind of what happens in that case.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not ratified by a majority of those present, as an overall agreement, and it's like an all or nothing type of thing, because it's a settlement package proposal, then what happens is you go back to the drawing board, you contact them and say, it didn't pass. And identify the sticking points and see if you can work out a language change that would be palatable. What you'd want to do in that particular case is, I think you'd want to schedule a closed session and discuss what would be palatable to those who don't like that language, before you actually take it back to the bargaining table. But that's really the pathway.
No, you're fine.
Not at all.
So I guess this Dan here, I guess I'm just confused because I thought that there was a vote, that I know it was an online vote on the last piece of this business. And at that point, it was my understanding that that vote passed 3-2. So my understanding today was that we were just going to come down and ratify that agreement that had passed. But, and I'm not sure how to talk about this because how people voted is their business, I suppose. But it's just, this isn't making sense in terms of what I thought was happening
Yeah.
here today.
Yeah, so again, clauses 1 through 5 did not change. The last addition, the 3-2 vote was number 6. Again, I thought in the closed sessions, I thought you guys had clearly given me authority on 1 through 5. We do need a majority vote today to ratify.
Right.
If if Julia doesn't feel she can support 3 and 4 and votes against it, then we need the rest of you guys to vote for it to succeed. I would say, again, we've negotiated for 7 months. The year started July 1st. We're going to start negotiating for the next one probably in January. So I do think it'd be best for the city to put this one behind us. I think we've got to look at kind of quantifying, I guess, like Dave said, well, if we turn this down, what change would we want and what is that worth?
I think
mhm.
what Dave just said is we would go back to a closed session, schedule a closed session and have a conversation about the language that would work for us. And we did. And this is the language that we came up with.
Right. I'm saying if you voted down today, we would go back to that. And whatever that tweak is that a big enough reason to, go back, basically?
Right. I can't imagine.
And I can't, and my intention is not to sway others into the vote. I can only vote according and voice according to my opinions that I've expressed in the past and my concerns and remain firm with those. So I guess it'll go down to a final vote.
I could call for a vote unless there's other discussion. Or I'm sorry, call for a motion.
I just wanted to say one thing, and I don't know if this is the correct time, but hopefully it's not problematic. But I would like, before we go back to this in January, to possibly price what it would be for the sheriff's department to offer the same level of service, just to have something to compare to as the budget grows for.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite catch all that.
Oh, sorry. I just would like to, at some point, if we can get a price from the sheriff's department for what the same level of service would cost, I think it would make it easier for me to understand as this price tag grows. and to be able to answer people's questions with regard to the cost of this. Yes.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I agree with
I
that.
agree with that, Susan. Thank you, Susan.
So in the meantime, I would move to approve this contract brought forward today.
Second.
Any more discussion? There's a motion and a second.
I think I need to do a roll call since we have somebody remote.
Okay, it's discussion. Public? We have public. Any comments? No? Okay. All right, we're gonna do a roll call vote then.
Okay, so Councilmember Reardon,
Aye.
Councilmember Feist,
Aye.
Councilmember Sirik,
Nay,
and Mayor Gunzelman.
Aye.
Okay, so the motion passes 3-1. So we will ratify this agreement. I'll work with Dave to turn it into a final MOU, but it'll be effective, I guess, as of today.
Very good.
I want to thank you, Tom, right now for all your efforts. This isn't to make any personal reflections on anybody. There are just statements that I feel that in this that are not compatible with where I would like to see the city of Sutter Creek's treasury or focus be. And so I just want to relay my gratitude towards you and the efforts that you made towards this. It's not to minimize any of your work at all. Thank you, Tom.
Appreciate it. I don't take it personally. And I agree that
Thank you.
studying the options is a good idea. And I think ideally,
Yes.
if we could even involve, I think, the police department as we study the options. I think it's important for everybody to understand our constraints.
Absolutely.
So,
I agree. That all members should be and parties should be at a table.
Okay, if there's nothing else, then we are adjourned.
Okay, thank you guys.
Very good. Thank you very much,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Yep. Bye-bye.